All right. Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'll talk very slowly during my introduction so that if anybody joins a little late, they'll catch the content and won't miss any good tidbits. But appreciate everybody jumping on with us. We've welcomed you to our four-part e-commerce webinar series. This is part one, the encore of developing an e-commerce strategy for your e-commerce website. As we've all kind of seen, the world has changed drastically over the past couple of months. So we saw a need to step in and provide some insight to companies who might not have otherwise considered e-commerce as a viable revenue opportunity, but have since had to change and pivot due to the times. So we really built this four-part webinar series for whether you're looking to get started with e-commerce or manage your current shop. By the end of this series, you'll kind of have some good ideas as to some of the best practices and techniques to utilize to benefit your shop. So again, this is the encore for part one, developing a strategy for e-commerce websites. Part two will be next Thursday, September 24th, and that's e-commerce customer acquisition strategies. There'll be an encore presentation of that on Wednesday, September 30th as well. Part three will be e-commerce customer growth and retention strategies. That'll take place on Thursday, October 8th. And then the encore will be Wednesday, October 14th. And then part four will be e-commerce user experience optimization strategies and key performance indicator analysis. And we'll hold those on Thursday, October 22nd and Wednesday, October 28th. And all the sessions will be at 11 a.m. You can register for each of them on that same website that you registered for this one. So without further ado, I'll pass off the baton to our CEO and founder, Nick Kraus, who since the creation of Kraus Marketing over 12 years ago has had a hand in the development of thousands of e-commerce websites for tons of companies in different industries, helping generate millions of dollars in revenue each month. So Nick, I'll pass it off to you.
Thank you, Mark. Welcome everyone that's joined today. Appreciate you coming in and hearing what we have to say about developing your e-commerce website. I'm here in Morristown, New Jersey, broadcasting from our headquarters. We're in a partially open schedule here. We have about 6,000 square feet, and we have half the staff rotating on 1 week and off the next to work from home. It's been pretty interesting this year. It's definitely been very interesting for our industry. A lot of the things that we've talked to our clients about have come true in an unfortunate scenario, but that being online with the best possible website is the best place for you to be. And I think a lot of people that didn't listen to that message for the last decade is feeling it now. But for many of our happy clients, they were in the right spot at the right time. And today I want to share with you some of the ideas and some of the insights that we found to be most important when developing a website. Just real quick about Kraus Marketing, and I'm going to stop the video so I don't get caught up with looking at myself instead of the screen. We started in the early 2000s. I wanted to create an agency that businesses both regionally and nationally could come to for help to improve their brand in a traditional and digital sense. So that was really mostly like logo design, corporate identity, and website design. We quickly learned, though, that no matter the size of the company, they needed more than a great brand and a website. They needed people to find them. So in 2008, we started to develop our digital capabilities. That was mostly SEO at the time. Facebook was just coming out, and social was just something that we were understanding how to grab a hold of. Now our capabilities do stretch from everything from SEM to social to paid media and email marketing as well. We realize that the best agency is one that can help a company create a compelling brand story, both written and visually, but also an agency that can have them be found online. So we practice at Kraus an all under one roof solution. Unfortunately, right now it's all or half under one roof solution. But we do believe that full-time employees are the best way to deliver value and efficiencies to our clients. Having everyone in one room, one required, in order to discuss a campaign creates also the best synergy. So as you can see here, we have a full group of UX designers, graphic designers, web developers, SEM specialists, social specialists. We have a full team of copywriters and editors. We have marketing managers that act as your project coordinator for your campaign, but also someone that is directly responsible for optimizing your campaign. And of course, we have the account management. So here's some of the Kraus team for you to see visually. And I won't spend too much time on Kraus because you really didn't come to hear about us. But we do have quite a bit of brand experience, and we're pretty proud of it. And we're also proud of the awards we won. I used to read GD USA when I was in college 2 decades ago, and it's really pretty awesome to see our company be mentioned in it over and over again. Entrepreneur was another one that I used to read quite often, and Inc. And we've also made it in there several times as well. So e-commerce best practices. What are we going to talk about today? The idea was for this webinar to be able to span a little bit of beginner to a more experienced marketing manager, someone that has the digital experience, but also someone that is brand new to website development, that maybe have a regional, multi-chain retail store. So some of this may be a little bit 101, while others will be hopefully insightful. I hope everyone grabs at least one actual nugget that they can go back to their website or their website team and utilize today. We'll start off with a couple of case studies and statistics. I'm going to go through a website design process because whether you're using a professional agency like Kraus or you were going to outsource it, you really should understand how at least the basic steps of developing a website go. Then I'm going to talk to you about the best practices and the keys to focus on during design and development. All of these are important, and we will end with the opportunity to ask questions. It won't take that long. I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter, about 45 minutes, so we'll leave an opportunity for the questions to be answered at the end. So some statistics from this year. Been a very interesting year, as we stated. Sales in 2020 are predicted to increase by 18% compared to the same time or the same as last year, which was 14%. So we see a steeper curve in the increase in e-commerce sales, which actually I have read to be even a larger increase at this point. And we also have proof that e-commerce will represent in the States more than 14.5% of the total sales in 2020, which with the slow openings, especially in the New York metro area, but many areas around the country, may be well more than 14.5%. US consumers are expected to spend over $700 billion on e-commerce this year as well. So here's a case study that I thought was important to bring to you. This is a real-time case study of 2020 versus 2019. This is a client that has a consumable product that we have been working with for about 2.5 years. Now, we did have the opportunity to increase their sales by more than 30% for the first 2 years running, but this year has just been amazing. Their new accounts have increased by more than 235%. This is a consumable product that is also reused. Once the client uses it, they order it again and again. So new accounts are one of the largest KPIs, the most important KPIs to us, because this small $5 product typically gets ordered dozens of times a year. Total sessions have increased by 47%. If I did not say it, revenue by 161%. And you can see all the email, organic, and social traffic up at extreme numbers as well. For this client, we have found that email marketing, considering it is a consumable, is one of the best ways to impact the revenue. But new accounts over time is the second or the most important thing as well. They have a very low attrition rate compared to the industry standard. And this client was basically set up for success. This is the type of client that we've been talking to, doing a ton of work with month after month for years, and they were just set ready to go. But you may not be an established e-commerce website. You may not have seen these type of results this year. So I want to talk about if you are a brand new company that is a regional brand that is looking to develop an e-commerce website because you understand how important being digital is. So case study 2. This was a luxury consumer goods. They are a licensed retailer of high-end luxury purses and products. They did not have an online store. This is about 2 years ago. Actually, this is not during the pandemic. This is 2018, this case study. And they came to us, and they were actually doing a ton of sales on eBay and just in their brick and mortar. But they couldn't figure out how to make a sale on their e-commerce store, which they actually did have. And when we took a look at it, it looked cheap, but their purses were well over $1,500 for the most part. So we had to make the website represent their brand and also the product that they were selling. We quickly grew the traffic to over 1,000 visits daily. They received over $1 million in sales in their first 12 months online, and their average order value was $900. So a great success story. This is possible if you launch an e-commerce website with the right digital marketing behind it. So we'll talk a lot about how we developed a site much like theirs today and much like the consumable one as well. First, you got to understand the process. If you've never done this before, I will take you through a 5-step process that is the basics of developing your website. So if you're managing a team, which we'll talk about how to pick a team after we talk about the process, you would want to make sure that they're following this process. So first steps are goal development. You really should have an understanding of what your revenue goals are, and they should be realistic. What products are you going to focus on, or categories of products are you going to focus on? Is it a staged approach after launch of what you're going to put on the website? Is it everything? How large is your SKU list? Is everything launched with the launch of the website actually feasible? Some of our clients come to us with thousands of SKUs, some of them only selling a few items a month, some of these SKUs. So is it important to get something that is such a low volume seller on your website for launch? We would argue that speed to launch is more important than a full catalog. Other things to think about is if you have large products, would they make sense for e-commerce? Are they easily shippable? Do you have a team? Do you have a pick and pack or a 3PL or third-party logistics company that can help you ship products that you can't ship yourselves? So really the goal development, really creating a business plan is very important in the first step. That should be completely transparent with your agency so that they understand what they're trying to accomplish. So these goals probably should be developed before you go to the agency. This way that they can create a clear proposal for you to help you achieve those goals. Step 2, we've done the goal development. We've had a start meeting. And we have done all the competitive research and the targeting, and now we get into concept design. So concept design, if you were thinking about building a house, is much like the architect coming to you with a blueprint and rendering of what that house will look like. That's exactly what concept design is for your e-commerce website. You're going to get to see how your website looks and feels, and then you'll get to see an idea of how those pages are going to interact with each other via wireframes. So these concepts designs are very important because even if you have a really strong brand, 2 UX designers can come up with very different looks for your website. So we always recommend at least 2 concepts during this part of the phase, so you can get a different idea of how you could visually lay out the hierarchy of what's important on the website. Once you receive these concepts, an agency will go through them with you about why they created them, and then they'll give you the opportunity to revise them to further match your goals and your brand. The revision process is very important because once you reach the end of this, if we're talking about the house analogy again, they're going to start digging in the ground and start putting up studs and building walls based on these blueprints. The developer, after we have approval on this concept design and the wireframes, will start putting together a website, which is very time intensive. So to avoid extra hours post-development, it's important to really focus on the best practices that we'll be discussing later during this concept design. So now it goes into website development. During this time, you're not going to hear from your agency or your freelancer a whole lot. A good agency will check in with you weekly and let you know what you've accomplished, and also ask you for anything that they will need coming up down the road. For instance, merchant services information, and or SKU list if they're not providing images, product images, etc. So this should happen in a dev environment, of course, which I say of course, but I do see these websites developed live, so people could actually interact with the website in development. This should be in a dev environment that only you and your agency can see. Once it's ready for your viewing, which means that it's been QC'd by the agency and made as final attempt at what the website should look like, it's delivered to you in the form of a link. Now, this step 4 is the opportunity for you to refine and finalize the website before launching it. So it's now still on a dev server, only you and your team can see it. And typically the first round of revisions is 2 or 3 pages of bullet points long. So don't be frustrated when the exact vision of what was 4 or 5 pages of design layout is not exactly what you want to see when you get it in person. So you're going to make a bulleted list and send it back to your agency, or you'll sit in a meeting, which is a little bit more arduous, and go through those changes with them directly. Once you've gone through 2 to 3 rounds of revisions, you will be at the opportunity to launch your website. It'll be in final phase. You have checked the cart, you have made sure everything works, you've done test purchases, etc. And now you will want to launch the website. We'll talk about what type of server to launch the website on later, but the launch of the website should not just be, I am done. The launch should be followed by a full QC, quality check, that checks all images, all links. It should make sure that there is a specialized or a customized 404 page. It should be speed optimized, mobile optimized as well, pre-launch and post-launch. Very important things. I'm sure we've all received, or many of us in this webinar have received a link from a good friend, another marketing manager or CEO saying, check out my new website. And you click through it and 1 or 2 of the links are broken and images missing, etc. For that reason, we not only recommend a full QC, but a soft launch period where you could send it to a couple close friends or share it throughout the company and offer the opportunity for them to tell you anything that they may have seen that's funky before you go ahead and launch it to the entire world, which should go in the form of email, social, and paid search and paid media. So those are the 5 steps. It's goal development, it's concept design, it's website development. Before it goes to launch, it's refinement, refinement, refinement. Then it's launched and QC'd and refined more and speed optimized in a soft launch format. And then it's finally the full-on grand opening launch. So finding the right team. This is really important. There's many different types of teams you could use, and an agency isn't always the perfect fit for a company. Budgetary reasons could be one. Also, the structure of the company could be the other. But I'll give you basically the 3 different ways you could develop a website. You could use a freelancer. You can go to Upwork or Guru.com and you can find a freelancer. Now, freelancers are great because typically they're inexpensive. What we have found, and we've done this hundreds of times, is that a lot of times clients will come to us after trying to use a freelancer because the freelancer isn't responsive and or hasn't finished their website. A lot of times you'll find a freelancer that seems highly reliable, has good reviews, and then they find a full-time job or they get a gig that's much bigger than yours. So you were only paying them $12,000, but they just got a $50,000 project. So who gets the focus? It's going to be the bigger project. So we get this a lot where they're like, we had a freelancer, we were working with him for a year, it never got going. We just want to spend the money the right way this time and get it done. So that happens a lot. A more logical solution is if you want to go lower budget is offshore. So there's the opportunity to offshore is where you'll have redundancy in developers. So offshore means basically an agency that's offshore either the Middle East or Eastern Europe. And they'll have multiple developers that are available to work on your website. They'll have one lead. With offshore, though, you will be project managing. You will be leading the UX development, and you will be the marketing manager that has to be the expert on how an e-commerce website gets developed. They know how to put it together and how to launch it, but it's much like a guy that knows how to build a shed compared to a guy that knows how to build a skyscraper. Both of them could make buildings, but who's better at it? And that's where you get to the agency level, where you have multiple functions that are experts in each one of their capabilities. So you have a branding expert, you have a UX designer, you have a web developer, you have an art director overseeing all of that. You have QC people, content creators and copywriters, and then on another layer on top of that, you have a marketing manager that you interface with directly, that project manages the whole entire team. That doesn't mean that you don't get direct opportunity to talk with that team, but they will manage that team for you on your behalf so it's most efficient. That's what you get with an agency, is that full team of capabilities. They're experts in each one of those, and you get the marketing manager layer. So the right team is important for the right company, and that's up to the company to decide who they're going to work with. So you understand the process, you understand the pros and cons of working with different types of teams. Let's get into best practices, because this is really probably why you joined the webinar today. So a UX focused design. Now this may seem obvious, but UX is more than just efficiency in browsing a website or high conversion rates. We find that the best design is a brand campaign and a brand that can be created within the website through imagery, through messaging, through visual elements that really evoke emotion from the consumer. The emotion is actually what drives the purchase. And of course, it has to be backed up with product knowledge and information, which we'll go over too. But if you don't bring that emotion out of the consumer, if they don't like your brand, then you've lost the opportunity to win their business. This is the Nike website, and you could tell by the imagery and the messaging that they've spent a lot of time understanding what is it that the client's going to see when they get to, or the consumer's going to see when they get to the website. Now we'll get to the obvious stuff. It should be easy to navigate. The copy or text on the website should be high contrast. Obviously on this website, it's black on white, very common and probably the best to use. And here's another really important part. It should be ADA compliant. A lot of people are missing this, but Americans with Disabilities Act is coming after a lot of the big websites and even regional brands and suing them for not being ADA compliant. We have a whole nother webinar about ADA compliances, so I won't get into it too much, but you should at least follow the basics of ADA compliance. And then there are some AI tools that you could use to make sure that you cover your brand and your company against any lawsuits that could be possible. So with UX is above the fold. So we just talked about that brand and evoking that emotion from the consumer when they get there. And that should be above the fold. Traditionally, above the fold is when you have a newspaper folded in half, and what do you see above it, right? What is the headline of the newspaper? That is the main messaging or your unique selling point on your website, your USP. And clever brands, they figure out how to wrap up a USP, a call to action, all into their core messaging. So the idea of Wayfair right here, home improvement projects done your way, they're talking about a do-it-yourself brand, which Wayfair is all about, getting the products that you want and building and doing it yourself. But it also has a call to action, which is the shop now, and it also represents their brand, the DIY of their brand, as opposed to going to the retail or getting an interior designer to do it for you. So what's above the fold? The other things that should be above the fold besides obvious imagery and messaging and your unique selling point are typically specials, main categories, featured products, Very important. And that goes into kind of the main sections of the homepage. Again, the homepage is the cover of your book, right? So if this is a book, and we always say people judge a book by its cover, that is the homepage. Now, we can get people to your website, or we can get people to pick up your book, but if we didn't design the website, we can't get people to make a purchase. We can't be taken for the blame of them making the purchase. So just like I could point someone in Barnes & Noble to a book, if they pick up that book and the title, which would be the messaging, or the imagery, which would be the cover design, doesn't relate to them, they'll probably put that book down before opening it. That's your homepage. What does your homepage look like? How does it get people to go in? And typically, this is a lot of options. This is, I believe, Amazon's website. A lot of options for them to dive in deeper than one page. If you can get them in deeper than one page, your percentage of converting to a sale is much higher than obviously making a purchase from what is the first page. So a lot of things that you could show, again, is featured products, categories, products on sale. Seasonal and trending are really important, right? Depending on what your product selection is, it may be seasonally focused. So there's a lot of back to school stuff on here, but there's also some Halloween items. This is obviously a recent image. Call to action buttons. Now, call to action button should actually call people to action. A lot of designers get stuck in making things just pretty looking. So this learn more button in the red to blue section is what I would call a pretty lame call to action button. But I would also say that the UX designer, considering this is EA Sports, knew that this was a secondary call to action. What they really wanted people to do was buy. So the only thing that appears in purple on this page, which I assume matches the brand guidelines, is buy Madden NFL 21. That is a strong call to action. And it's also a unique color. So when you're thinking about what your buy buttons look like, make sure that your designer isn't getting too, minimalist with the look of their call to action buttons. They really should be a compromise between what is high-end design or good design and what is good UX and what is good UI. Call to action buttons are something that I think people know they should have, but research found that 70% of websites that are developed are the call to action button is not examined. And post-launch, we'll talk about later, is how you can examine whether a different color or a different call to action button will actually increase conversions through heat mapping. So this is an obvious one, I think, but again, if you're not paying attention to the development of the website and you're expecting someone else to do it for you, this may be completely left out because it is also a very time-consuming thing, and it has to be done right in order for people to do it, which is filters. Filters are really important, but also a search button. Now the search is only well functioning if the titles of your product are set up properly. But the filter has to have the right attributes within the product for the website to know whether it's blue, black, orange, whether it's over $50 or under 150. So attributes of each product have to be set up properly. So when it's uploaded into your e-commerce solution, that it could be filtered properly when someone's looking through a large amount of SKUs. Of course, as a user, I don't want to have to go through women's shoes to find men's shoes. Now, that may be obvious, and creating different categories are easy, but let's say you just have a men's shoe section. An athletic buyer does not want to look at business shoes, right? Or tennis shoes even. They may just want to look at basketball shoes. That's a pretty easy thing to set up in your SKU list of an attribute so that people know how to really funnel down quickly, because if they could find the product they want, the quicker they could find it, the more likely you are to get a purchase. Collect data. So this is very important for the conversations and the webinars in the future. But as I said earlier, emails are some of the highest converting and highest revenue drivers for our largest customers. So get that email address at all costs. If you can't do it before the checkout process, make sure you do capture it in the checkout process. I have seen e-commerce websites that do not help you create a unique user for their website. It's pretty crazy, but it does happen. They thought the idea behind that is probably, well, I just want to make it easy for them to check out. Well, if you make it too easy for them to check out, you'll never get them back to the website. So collecting that email address is important, but a very common practice now is by putting a pixel on your website and or a code on your website that allows for the website to know if this is a first-time user or first-time viewer of your website. If they're the first-time viewer of their website, then you offer them a promotion. And this gets them to provide your email address, especially if you make it really juicy. So this one says 70% off everyday home furnishings and free shipping on orders over $35. So it's pretty hard to find the no thanks button. There's obviously no X out. So you really just want to enter your email address because not only do you want it, you want to get past this section. So get their email address. Another really cool thing is their date of birth. Offering people promotions on their birthday, we have found very successful. If you could figure out their interests and a way to provide a questionnaire or some type of radio buttons on the different categories or interests they may have, so you could serve them up the right product and the right promotions is really important as well. So collecting data is huge. You'll learn about that in webinar 3, I believe, which is farming your current consumer base. Create a high converting product page. Again, this may seem obvious, but let's talk about the best practices. Left-right layout is what we always suggest. You see that here. You have the image on your left, and you have the most important copy on your right, including the title, the price, and a buy button. Very often, I see product pages, and not just on your smartphone, which requires it to usually stack, but on a desktop where the image is full width and you have to scroll down to see what it is. The easiest way for a consumer to make a decision is to be able to look at the images and read the description alongside each other. So this left to right layout has been proven to be the best layout for your product pages. Now let's talk about images. Make sure they're high end. Images, when you have a high volume of SKUs, could get expensive, but it's really the difference between success and not. If you don't have great images, you can't expect someone to make a purchase because they're going to be looking at a crappy image and that's the only thing they have to buy on. So unless they're buying completely on price and description, an image is really what's going to sell them. Now, a video is even better if you can fit it in. The video, especially for something that's a little bit more complicated of a product, is really important. So you see here, this product page has a video. This couch actually has a folding down arm. If you have someone sit down, they fold down the arm, they put down a drink, maybe there's a pocket for the remote. This is really important for you to show and to sell why your couch is more expensive than the others, although this one's only $300, so I'm pretty sure it's hard to find a cheaper couch. A clear title and description. We're going to talk about SEO titles later, but a clear SEO title and description are important. Here's one that I see on Amazon missed a lot, and I think that a lot of retailers that are on Amazon probably don't see reorders, and they also see a lot of bad reviews because they don't have clear specs. What is the size of the product? And you see the second arrow down on this page, it shows the actual size of the product. It's pretty easy to look at this and say, wow, that'll fill up my 20-foot room. But then you look at the size of it and it's about 5.5, 6 feet long. So it's a little bit smaller of a couch. It's more of a love seat. That's important for the client or the consumer to understand. Without that information, they're going to be purchasing something that is going to not be within their expectation. They're going to be not only return it on your dime, but then they're also going to leave a bad review. Lastly, provide bundle options. What happens if they buy 5? And of course, furniture isn't the best example for that. But if you're a consumable product, is there a better price if they buy in bulk as opposed to just one? Or if you're ordering something, would you buy it with something else? So if you're buying an MP3 player, offer the option to buy headphones with it at a discounted price. So bundle options are a great way to improve or increase basket size or average order volume. A lot of times we talk about that KPI, average order volume. Checkout, make sure it's easy. That seems simple, right? But one of the highest exit rates, or one of the reasons for the highest exit rates, is because too much information was required at checkout. Now, of course, we talked about collecting data, but it is a nice fine balance of collecting data but not asking too many questions so they could actually purchase the product. But the biggest reason that people actually abandon their cart is hidden fees. So the shipping cost on the Nike website is also on the product page. You're not going to find it just on the cart. So if someone thought that they're only going to spend $120 and that was the max budget, they're actually already over budget, but then you tell them that they have to spend another $10 once they get to the cart, they might actually just abandon the cart altogether. So no hidden fees. That is the largest reason for abandoned carts. Show it on the product page, all fees involved. And then if possible, provide free shipping. That's the best way to do it. But as you see, even the biggest of companies and brands do charge for shipping, so it's not unnecessary. When you're setting up your shipping, you will work with UPS, USPS, or FedEx to have an API that is hooked into your website that will help you in real time create an estimate on shipping. Now, I want you to know that they are estimates and they should probably be marked up, and you have a way of doing that within your screen on USPS or on UPS in order to mark up whatever their shipping is. Because what you will find is that often they estimate lower than what the actual cost is. So that's a really important thing. But if you have a third-party logistics company, they could help you with that, of course. ERP integration. So you're making sales on your website. How does your inventory system know that? How does your accounting system know that? This is really important. Your website should be talking to your accounting system and or your inventory system. We recommend, of course, both, unless you expect to only sell a few things a month, which maybe it wouldn't be worthwhile to even go into the e-commerce business. So if you actually expect to sell real bucks, invest in the integration upfront. It's going to save you a lot of time from actually, compiling the information into your accounting software or actually taking care of the inventory. The only time that inventory wouldn't make sense to be integrated is if you have like 1 or 2 products or maybe a dozen products and you have a trailer full of them. That's actually not uncommon for clients to come to us and say, I've ordered 1,000 t-shirts, 10,000 beer pong sets, and 5,000 of this. I just want to manage the inventory through the website. I don't sell it anywhere else. So the integration is not important. But if you have retail locations or you have other people selling your product, which is very common, then it should integrate with that inventory. The 2 ways you could do that is batch or real time. So batch means that it batches every couple of hours or once a day, sometimes even once a week, meaning that it'll collect all the data once a week and will reconcile it with your inventory or your accounting system for that matter at the end of that week. We recommend for people that are selling, a decent amount of revenue that the batching should happen, multiple times a day. Real time is the best way to do it, and that's what the biggest brands do. The infrastructure required for that is something that would have to be discussed with the 3PL company, and also making sure that your server and the software that you're using for your website can handle it. So real time obviously means, just to clarify, that I sell 1 set of Nike sneakers. Instantly, my inventory system in my warehouse knows that those sneakers are no longer available. Foundational SEO. So when you're setting up your website, the easiest way to think about this, if you don't have an SEO company or a large agency like ours that you're working with, is to think about what keyword would people be searching for when buying my product. I just typed in for this screenshot, Chevrolet Corvette. Car Gurus came up first, and you'll see why. We'll start with the title tag all the way up top, which has Chevrolet Corvette in it. And I actually put Chevrolet Corvette for sale. And then the next thing you'll see is in the URL, the name of the URL is use Chevrolet Corvette. Typically, this URL is decided by the title or the product page. So here's the title of the product. You'll see that it is the same as the URL. Again, that's in there. Here's Chevrolet Corvette as a category. Here's Chevrolet Corvette on the actual product page. So what is the keyword that people are going to be searching for? And then make sure that that is in the proper metadata. Your metadata is your title tag, your URL, your alt tags, and your H1s. So make sure that those keywords are integrated. So just think about for each product, and it's pretty easy to set up a system, but as far as the process goes, for each product, you have a keyword that people would be searching for to get that product, and make sure that keyword is included in that page. A lot of times it's not going to be, you're not Chevrolet Corvette. So if you're selling umbrellas that are unbreakable by the wind, wind-resistant umbrellas would probably be a good keyword. So that should be in the title of your page and throughout the website. So, and I'm just coming up with that off the whim, but you understand what I'm saying as far as what is the keyword that people are going to be looking for. Typically, you're not going to have a product name that everyone's going to know across the country. Include live chat. The easiest way to increase conversions on your e-commerce website, if you don't have live chat and you actually have the capabilities of having, if you do have customer service, for instance, and you can have live chat, put live chat on your website. You will increase conversions right away. It also increased average basket size, because instead of them just going, for instance, on this wine.com to find Cabernet, or what do we say here, Pinot Noir, they can be pointed to a more expensive Pinot Noir. But if they could find it quickly and understand why Pinot Noir is a wine that is good, or if they could be told by the chat professional or the customer service professional behind the scenes that Pinot Noir also pairs good with this type of cheese, which is also available on our website, that's an opportunity to increase average basket size as well. So live chat, I think, should be on every website. If you're a small company and you're managing this yourself, and or you're one of the only marketing managers, you could literally have it go to your phone. You could have it on only certain times of the day. You could actually set up a bot that will talk back and forth with the customer for you if you have a simple enough product. So this is a great way to improve your conversion rate. A lot of people don't have it on their websites because they don't have the infrastructure for it, but many, I think, if they just thought hard enough, could set it up, and it would be well worth it. Inspire trust. If you're not a well-known brand, let's say you're a regional brand, or you're a newer brand, how are people going to trust you? Best way is reviews. Put the reviews on your website. A lot of people are scared to do this, but I would like to think that everyone on this webinar has a product that they really believe provides a good value and good benefits. For that reason, why would you be scared of showing the reviews of how much people like your product? Other ways of doing it are security badges and press logos. Have you been seen in the press? Put them on the website. It's a pretty easy thing to do. We did it at the top of this webinar. We showed all the places that we've been mentioned in the press. It's a great way to create legitimacy about your product and your company and your brand. Of course, optimize your speed. And for mobile, more than half of your website visits will typically be mobile for e-commerce, especially depending on how you are advertising it. For instance, social. Speed is, for that reason, very important. So let's talk about servers. We recommend spending the money on a private server, which is $100 to a couple $100 a month, which in the big scheme of things is very inexpensive if you're talking about millions of dollars in sales, or the goal of one day doing millions of dollars of sales if you're not a larger brand. So put it on a private server, but then make sure that private server has redundancy, right? It has redundancy, it has weekly backups, and then it has also a cloud delivery network. A cloud delivery network means that your website is cached on servers around the country. And depending on where that user is, that most local server serves up your website. A lot of times, if you're just using a smaller hosting farm, they'll have 3 or 4 locations for their servers. And if you're not in the New York metro area, let's say you're in Ohio, there may be no close server farm to you. So now you're being served up a website from either Chicago or from New York area. And for that reason, it just takes time to get through the tubes, to keep it simple. So you want a cloud delivery network that will have multiple servers around the country where your website will be cached, so that if you're in Ohio, then maybe Cincinnati, Ohio has a smaller server farm that could serve up your website. because location when serving up your website is very important. I know we all think it just magically appears right on your device, but no, the signal has to be sent, and time through space does take time. It's not an instant thing. So think about your server for sure, not just about the speed of code or a size of images. Platforms. At Kraus Marketing, we use three main platforms: Shopify, Magento, and WooCommerce. BigCommerce is one that is also an obvious and well-known one. Squarespace, I guess, has an e-commerce solution, and there's dozens more. What you want to choose for a platform is something that's not proprietary. Proprietary would mean that the agency or the outsourced company that you're using created that themselves, that platform themselves. The reason you wouldn't want to use this is because you are now married to that agency. Also, if a couple of lead developers from that agency were to leave, you may also have someone that's very amateur on the code to work on your now very expensive and very important website. If you use a very well-known platform that is typically inexpensive, not only is the time to launch going to be a lot less, it's also going to be a lot more efficient, a lot less costly. And lastly, if you don't like that agency, you can go to another agency that will work on it. Let's compare it to cars. If I have an Aston Martin, it's pretty hard for me to find someone that's going to work on my engine. If I have a Chevy, then almost any mechanic will work on that for me. Now, if you want to go higher end, BMW is still better than Aston Martin, right? Because there's still plenty of mechanics that will work on a BMW. So I think you get the idea of why a very unique platform could hinder your ability to be flexible with who's developing your website and what agency is working on your website. The top three I would recommend are Shopify, Magento, and WooCommerce. If we were to name just one, right now it's Shopify. Magento has been, with its 2.0 release, has been very quirky to say the least, and it's very heavy lifting. It's very expensive. And then WooCommerce, while we do like it for its capability to plug in to WordPress, there are a lot of things that can go wrong with WooCommerce. So, but those three are still very legit options. We still, for different reasons, would use all three of them. So if you ask me to recommend it in that order, it'd probably be Shopify, WooCommerce, then Magento. But Magento, if you have a legacy Magento, then staying with Magento, there's an obvious reason for that, and there's an obvious play for that. So to wrap it all up, your design should represent your brand. It should evoke emotion. The UX should be easy to navigate, inspire trust, have good images, have video if possible. Make sure you're looking for SEO, collect consumer data. So those are the main points that I would say, wrapping it up. This is available for you if you just email me or Mark after this webinar. We will send a PDF to you so that you can go through this in a slower way. We could also send you a checklist of each one of these items so that when you do get your concept design, that you will be able to talk to your web developer and use almost a checklist to say, okay, I've thought of everything at this point. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions.
Yeah, guys, there's a question and answer feature in the bottom. Feel free to submit some questions. We already have a couple from last week, and we just got one in. Looks like, Nick, are you going to go into a little more depth about thinking and documenting requirements for really picking the best e-commerce platform? Shopify has some SEO limits, and you can't customize the code, as well as their site architecture limits. So yeah, that kind of ties into some of the platforms and your preferred platform, Nick. Can you talk to that a bit?
Yeah, no, actually, that's a really good point, Nancy. So actually, that's one of the reasons that we will steer people away, or those are a couple of reasons why we'll steer people away from Shopify. Customization and the SEO limitations are two of the biggest hindrances for Shopify. So that is something definitely that we talk to our clients about. The reason that we also do like Shopify is the ability to work with social platforms. So there's a lot of plugins that allow you to direct traffic directly from social to your Shopify website that some of the other platforms don't have. So for search purposes, definitely, there are limitations. And then for social purposes, there are things that Shopify has that other platforms don't have.
Awesome, thanks. I just put my my email in the chat for anybody who would like to receive a copy of the presentation. You can shoot an email over there. Questions regarding selling education. Great question. When it comes to selling education, online services like classes and courses as opposed to a product, do you have a preferred platform or any suggested strategies you would lean towards based on some that you discussed?
Yeah, so platform isn't going to change a whole lot for that. Actually, WooCommerce will work perfect. Typically, you probably have a well SEO'd website if you're going to be selling an education platform. And we actually have a couple clients that are doing that right now. A lot of the same things apply. For this, you would probably, instead of having pictures, you're going to want video available of the a teaser video available or Sizzler video available for people to review before they make the purchase. You're going to want to make sure your descriptions are good. You're going to want to inspire trust and have testimonials. You're going to want to have a pricing structure that may be reoccurring, that's very easy for people to understand. A lot of the best practices do remain the same. Some of them, like filters, may be irrelevant if you're only selling a couple different education classes. But we do have one client that has a large number of classes. For that reason, education is required. I mean, filters are required for them as well.
Yeah, it really is a great question. And just to tag on to what Nick had said, another one of the clients that I'm working with directly has done a strong push to market their summer camps, which would kind of fall into that category. And what they had done was rely heavily on testimonials, and then they sort of updated the availability of the summer camp offering. So if it was a 6-week program, when there were 4 weeks left, they updated it for a 4-week program. When there were 2 weeks left, they updated it for a 2-week program. And they kind of made those options available throughout. So if there was somebody who wanted to participate for the latter half of the summer or the beginning half of the summer, they were available to be flexible. So yeah, it was a great question. Interesting. Nick, are you starting to use TikTok?
So we have researched TikTok. We do not have any clients on the platform yet to be answered. So there are some advantages of TikTok. There are also approaches obviously being made of TikTok. And we'll also feel a little bit safer about some of the information that will be shared. But it is hugely powerful if you have a young audience, and it'll be just like Instagram, where that young audience will quickly turn old, and it already is. So the early adopters are usually the youngest, right? And they're obviously targeting people that want to be famous. So this is a platform that if you can get on and you have a product that right now has a younger user base, I would most definitely recommend it. But no, to answer it, we have all the research and we're ready to go for the right client, but we have not rolled it out for anyone just yet.
Cool, thanks. All right, cool. So regardless of products, what's a good budget for a great website and a sales campaign?
Well, regardless of products. Well, so let's say you didn't have to decide whether you're going to upload 1,000 products or 5 products, because that does come into a big part of the cost of developing a website. But you're talking typically an e-commerce website developed by a professional agency. On the low end, it's going to be 17,000 and up, more likely 20,000 and up if you want all the right stuff. And on the high end, well over 50,000 and into the 6 figures, depending on number of products and SKUs, whether imagery and messaging and or campaigns will be being taken care of. It's a loaded question that's hard to answer because just developing an e-commerce website has hundreds of hours involved in it. But there are tons of things that sometimes are taken care of by the marketing team on the client side, and others times that are completely required of the agency, all the way from all the copy to all the imagery and all the assets involved. And then I see Andrea's question here. So is WooCommerce the best platform? And Andrea had asked for the educational classes? And the answer would be probably, especially if you're already on WordPress. So if you're already on WordPress, you have an updated website, then yes, that's the easiest answer for sure. But it's a probably, because we'd have to see how old your website is, how you want the classes to sell, how many classes you have, how you're looking to promote the classes, whether it's social or whether it's SEM, etc. So yeah, and we do so the question was, don't you all do financing for total costs, i.e. lower fees per month? And the answer is yes, we do. So we actually are pretty unique to many other agencies out there, where we set you up on a 2-year plan. So you could be in just a few hundred to several $100s a month to develop an e-commerce website. So it's like driving the $50,000 or $70,000 BMW off the lot, but you're only paying several $100s a month to be driving that BMW. And I would consider us the higher end luxury brand of agencies. We're definitely not going to be the cheapest, but we are definitely going to deliver a superior product.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Nick. I mean, we don't have any other questions coming in, but real quick, just a roundabout question. Give me, I know it was one that came up last week. What's a time frame traditionally to get an e-commerce presence up and running in 2 instances? Let's say 1, you don't have an existing website, and let's say 2, you have an existing website and you want to tag a shop onto it.
Yeah. So the second one's a little bit easier. Let's say the website's good, right? And the website, your current website's good, and you just want to tag e-commerce onto it. It could be probably 8 weeks, especially if we like the design of the current website. We're just going to take those visual elements and roll it into your e-commerce website. It could be just as short as a couple months. So let's say 8 weeks. Typically, though, if I was going to want to manage your expectations as a client, if I told you anything less than 16 weeks to develop a website from scratch, and that's with a good brand in place already, I'm going to probably end up disappointing you. And it's not because it takes that many hours and days to develop a website. It's just the amount of communication required and the amount of time that goes back and forth between the agency and the client. 16 weeks is just the minimum amount of time that we find we could ever say that it's going to launch. Have we launched e-commerce websites in 4 weeks? Yes. And my web developer heard me, my senior web developer heard me saying that, which we have several on staff. But our most senior one, who has done it in 4 weeks, would kill me, because the answer is supposed to be 16 or more. But it really is, to manage expectations. 6 months, especially for a good brand that's going to have ERP integration, 6 months is probably even a better answer when putting this together. If anyone tells you 9 months to a year, then they're probably expecting not to talk to you for a couple of weeks at a time. 4 to 6 months is probably a legit answer.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, cool, guys. Unless there's any other questions, we'll wrap it up. Thank you, Nick. It was a great job. I threw my email in there if anybody would like a copy of the presentation. And again, we'll have part 2 of e-commerce customer acquisition strategies starting next week, Thursday, September 24th at 11 a.m. So if you'd like, you can jump on to our website, sign up for that, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody there. Real quick, last question. Can you develop a private social network from Peepso or Buddy Press?
So we have walked down this years in the past, down this road. It's a conversation that's worth having offline. Mark, why don't you send this attendee your email address, and we can set up a short call, because budget and understanding of what you're looking for is really the conversation that has to be had for that one.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense. All right, sure. I'll go ahead and do that. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for jumping on with us. Great questions, great participation. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you guys all next week.
Thanks, guys.